Okay, so next, we're going to have a lesson. So I just want to say shortly, I've heard it said the serenity prayer is the hotline to God. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when we examine our ways, part of the process is we are aware of what we can change and what we can't change. And we're holding ourselves, God honors when we hold ourselves responsible for examining our ways. If we're going through life and everything's everyone else's problem and now everyone else is to blame, that just leads to more problems, right? So examining our ways is a part of a Christian walk. And so Jesse's here, freshly out of step study again, to share with us inventory. Thanks, Jesse. Let's give me a hand.
Cool. Can you guys hear okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me just pray us in. Jesus, I just ask that your Holy Spirit would be present with us tonight. Let the words that come out of my mouth not be my words, but be your words. And just open our hearts. I know how much I need your continual opening of my heart and mind so that I can see the things you want me to see. Please do that in a special way for us tonight. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned just recently out of a step study, and I just wanted to share a little testimony about that. You know, I've been through step study 7 times. And when you go through step study 7 times, it's really easy to get the attitude of, I already know this. And last Wednesday, I had a massive breakthrough. And what it was that part of the story I'll share tonight as I'm going through step study is that I had not given over the condemnation that I felt about some of my past actions. I firmly believed that was my identity, that there was no way that if you ever knew those things about me, that you could love me and accept me and think of me as a normal human being, ever. And I held that with me forever. And so everything I did was from this place of fear and shame. And I was doing the step study, it was the last lesson, and it had the verse in there, there's no more condemnation in Jesus Christ. And it got through to me. I mean, I've memorized that verse. I've known it for years. And for some reason, the 7th time around, God spoke to my heart and he said, Jesse, that isn't who you are anymore. That is not who you are. Like, yes, I did those things, but I don't have that identity anymore. And it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I mean, it's changed my life. So just sharing that today as we go through this lesson and we go through the step study, like God has a way of getting through to us that can change us if I desire to be open. So I asked for God to show me new things, and he did it the 7th time around. I hope it doesn't take you 7 times, but hey. All right, so I got a question for you guys. I used to do this in corporate training, so you're going to have to ask the person next to you a question, okay? It's a little interactive question, all right? I want you to ask the person next to you to tell you, and you need to ask somebody other than someone you live with, because if they answer too easy. 10 items in your refrigerator. See if they can get to 10 items in the refrigerator, okay? Go. Tell the person next to you 10 items in your refrigerator. Tell. So you tell the person next to you, the person next to you tells another person. What are 10 items in your refrigerator? Don't be shy, everybody tell somebody. Keep count too, because the idea is we need to know who made it to 10, who didn't make it to 10. All right, we're giving you 30 more seconds. All right, ding, 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 ding. Raise your hand if your partner got to 10 items. Raise your hand. Okay, somebody got to 10 items. The women got to 10 items. Well, one of the men. Other people in the back, not so much. Robert? Okay. So I was trying to draw a correlation between the idea of an inventory, right? Because a spiritual and moral inventory is taking stock of what's in our lives. I don't know about you, but I'm not the head shopper in my family. And I typically do not know what needs to be shopped for. So constantly I'm going to the fridge and it's, missing some of the things that I want to happen. When I go tell my wife, she's like, well, you didn't check, you didn't look, So the idea being just like with a physical inventory of what's in my fridge, what's in my garage, good and bad, right? Like in your fridge, you've got some stuff in there that you still can eat, and you've got some stuff, those lettuce leaves that are turning brown and stale, and you got to throw them out soon, right? You gotta keep track of things. It's not just a one and done, right? You got to constantly be updating the inventory of your fridge. Well, spiritually, the fourth step is a tool to do that. Now, for some of you, like I've been through a few other 12-step programs, and something they encourage is doing a fourth step daily, right? Like whenever you get a new resentment or you get a new difficulty in your life, they ask you to fourth step it. With the principle being, it teaches us to look what's under the rock, right? So today, as we're doing this, we're doing principle 4, openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. And step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So, one of the things when we do an inventory is I tend to focus on my shame. I tend to focus on the bad things that I've done. And I forget that it's a balanced inventory. It's not just the things that I've done that are horrible and wrong. There are also good things, things that God has done in my life. And so one of the things we just like to encourage you when you consider doing a fourth step is you don't do it alone. Because if you're like me, I remember all the horrible things about myself really well. I don't remember the positive things. I've had buddies in 12 steps who relapsed as they were doing their fourth step inventory because the shame came back so strong. And we don't want to do that alone. So just an encouragement, as you're doing the fourth step, there's a reason why it's the fourth step, is we're supposed to be doing the previous steps before it, and we're not supposed to do it alone. So just an encouragement for that. Johnny Baker, who leads Celebrate Recovery for the country, he said that a lot of people who get stuck in recovery who will come up to him at a training and they'll tell him, hey, recovery just isn't working for me. I keep relapsing. And he asked them, he finds above all, the biggest reason is because people have not finished a fourth step inventory. A lot of people stop coming or they don't finish it. And so it's just a big plug. This is a really important step in our recovery, in our lives. So God's word tells us, there's a verse, Psalms 139, 23 through 24, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test my thoughts. Point out anything you find in me that makes you sad, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. To me, that kind of sounds like a step 4, right? Like so many times in my sin life, I thought if nobody else knew, I'm okay, right? There are certain sins, it doesn't impact anybody else, but for one, I know. So I'm always carrying that guilt with me. And then the other thing is God knows. So when I invite God into my life and I write it down on my fourth step and I turn that over, when I did that the first time, I cannot express, and maybe some of you have felt that same thing too, like the sense of just freedom. And I remember thinking to myself, why did I wait 25 years to do that? Why did I wait 25 years to get rid of this that I was carrying? Before I was 350 pounds, and after losing 100 pounds, I feel like I can fly. And I think spiritually, with our moral inventories, it's the same feeling. When we finally get that stuff out there, there's a sense of freedom that we get that you just can't experience until you give that stuff over to God. So I also love this verse that we can look at it like if then. Does that make sense? So if I let God search me, if I let God know my heart, test my thoughts, and point out anything in my life that makes him sad, next step, what is he going to do? Lead me along the path of everlasting life. If I do those things, that's where it is. It's like that's God saying, that's the way over there. If you just do these things, you will get to I-94, right? You will get to Route 131. Follow those steps. Yeah. So for me, where I got stuck was the shame that when I was 8 years old, I was sexually abused. And I turned around and I passed that on as a 10-year-old and to people younger than me. And that was something that I never could get over the shame of that. Like I said last week, I truly believed my identity. If you guys knew that about me, you would just think I was a pariah. People could never look at Jesse again as a normal person. And no matter how much I tried to go through recovery and how much I had confessed it, but I still carried that shame. And so putting that down and sharing that with my sponsor and sharing with other people in recovery that I could trust, God started healing my heart because I found people around me who knew me did love me. And I started experiencing a little step, that forgiveness through other people that I never would have known was possible had I not shared that. And it scared me. It kept me so many of the things I did was covering that shame. And all of my addiction and my acting out, my relapsing was covering the shame and the pain of that shame. So, do you know everybody has 3 characters? Do you know what they are?
Me, myself,
Anybody
and
familiar with that?
I. Me, myself, and I.
Me, myself, and I. There's the character that I show you. There's the character that we think we have. And there's the character that we truly have. So, one of the things that doing a moral inventory does is it helps us see the deeper things about ourselves, good and bad, that we often forget. Because I don't know about you, but I often put on a show. I put on this external shell of this is the happy-go-lucky guy who wears the bright hat, who's always smiling, and I don't show you the shame game that's going on underneath. I don't show you the fears that are going on underneath. And a moral inventory helps us get real. It's, really real honesty. So, another thing that the moral inventory does is help us look for patterns. When you start writing stuff down, you start seeing, wait a minute, when I face this situation, I do this same behavior again. And you start seeing why. I don't know if any of you have difficulty managing money. Maybe some of you guys are really good at it. I don't like you. I have a hard time with it. For me, that's been something I'm not good at. And so, if you ever get to the end of the month and you're like, where did it all go? Right? What happened? And then, they have this software that tracks everything and categorizes everything, and you go look at it and you're like, oh, I ate out 1 million times, Jesse. That's why I went, So I'm able to see my patterns. And I think that's kind of an idea what a spiritual moral inventory does for us. So first step up is we're looking at our relationship with others. I thought it was kind of cool that the first area that they ask us to look at is an interpersonal area. So often I forget that this addiction is not just something inside of me, it's something that impacts us in my relationships with other people. So the first question is, we're looking at who has hurt you, and against who are you still holding a grudge? Other fellowships, they call this your resentment list, right? You write down the list of things, people you have resentments against. Like I shared in my story, something that I had forgotten was I remembered my shame. And it took me writing down my inventory to remember my experience of being abused. And I connected the dots. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This wasn't just something that I did. This was something that happened to me. And it doesn't excuse what I did, but it made the dots be just a little bit clearer of why I had experienced things and why I had done some of the things that I had done. Who do you have a grudge against? A lot of times when we ask this question in step study, when I'm with the men, a lot of them be like, no, I don't have a grudge against anybody. I'm beyond all that. So let me ask the question a different way. Is there anybody that when you tell the story of something that happened, you start having an argument with yourself in your head again? Do you ever do that where you think of a situation and you start, I do that when I think about my spouse, and I'll start having an argument and she's not even there. It's just me, right? And I'm saying things that I would have said, and I'm thinking of excuses, and I'm getting one in that I didn't get in the moment, and I start realizing, wait a minute, I think I might still have a grudge about that. So if they're situations that come up in your life and you find yourself and you're worked up, there might be something still there. And those are good things to put on your inventory, right? Are you jealous of anybody? Anybody ever scroll through social media and you look at it and you're like, man, why them and not me? For me, Instagram is a difficult place to go because everybody is better looking, more athletic, more successful, has better everything than Jesse, And I don't know if like you, one of the things I had a lot of shame was I truly believed I was not good enough looking. We get certain messages in our childhood, right? That something's wrong with me. Mine were that I was not capable enough. I was not smart enough. So I have 12 siblings in my family. I'm the middle one. So I have 4 older brothers who are all older than me, more physically capable than me. They were better with the girls than me. I was always the low man on the totem pole, And so I believed this message that I was unlovable and felt a lot of jealousy about it. Who have you hurt? I guess, obviously I shared that story about my trauma and then my inflicting trauma on others. I think we all have things in there that we've done to other people, and it's something that I have to be honest with myself about, and that shame can keep me stuck if I don't put it down there. I've talked to my sponsor when I shared with him my 4th step, And he shared how the first time he did his moral inventory, he left some stuff off. And it's funny how then when I get done with it, and afterwards, like, man, why didn't I just tell somebody? You know, why didn't I get free from that 10,000 pound weight that I still had on my shoulders? And a cool thing for me was when I told him this horrible thing, and he had an experience that was comparable to my experience. And I was like, man, I felt so understood and so loved and so forgiven. So it's a really cool opportunity. I don't want to call it a get out of jail free pass, but confession is the way we accept forgiveness from God. So that is the get out of jail free pass, right? It's called forgiveness, and we get it when we confess. Being critical. Have you been critical or gossiped about others? One of my mentors told me something that very often the things that I'm critical about in other people are pinpointing something in myself. They're pinpointing something in myself. So I really get bothered by proud people. Well, that's because I'm really proud, right? So I think one of the things when I was praying about this lesson, I was like, you know, for me, I often look at a moral inventory as a list of my faults, and a list of the things I should be better at. And I've been encouraged when I go through this process to get curious about the parts of my life that have hurts, hang-ups, and habits, because they tell a story. There's a reason why I'm critical of somebody else. There's a reason why I gossip about other people. And part of the step in the moral inventory is going, well, what's the fear behind that, right? What's the fear that is driving me to have this resentment, right? So like I said, I have a resentment against men who are a lot better looking than me. Well, why? What's my fear? My fear is if I'm not good enough looking, other people won't love me. I won't be truly loved by a woman, or I won't be accepted. So looking under the character flaw. It's not we're not just here for the purpose of saying I'm so bad and I should be better, you know, kind of this fluffy Christian stuff. We're actually trying to ask God to show us what's underneath that thing. Let's pick up that rock and see what is behind that character flaw. What is behind that resentment? Yeah, have you tried to justify your bad attitude? If you've ever been in a relationship, I've been married for 25 years, I can have an awful opportunity to say my mistakes were at least in some part caused by somebody else. And I found myself doing this when I make phone calls to other brothers, is I'd often tell them kind of a story of my circumstances that made me do X, Y, Z character flaw or sin. And I realized that in essence what I was saying, that unless my life was perfect, I have an excuse to go back. And so God was, through my brothers and my sponsor, were reminding me that actually, no, that's not how it works. That I don't have a justification, I have an opportunity, and that God wants to speak to me through these circumstances. Yeah? Priorities? If I asked you to tell me, we probably don't have time to do this again, it would be fun. If I asked you to tell the person next to you your list of your 5 priorities in life, want to do it? I'll give you 30 seconds. Do it fast. Tell the person next to you your 5 top priorities in life. Go. I don't hear you talking, people in the back. Come on, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Find somebody closer to you. What are your 5 top priorities in life? I see you sitting by yourself. Go find somebody. Come on. Thirty more seconds. All right. Did you finish? Okay. Now the next part, you don't have to tell the other person. I just want you to think for yourself. Think about your day-to-day. How many of those 5 things did you do? Show me on your hands, the show of 5 fingers. You just told your partner 5 things that you said were your life priorities. How many did you do? I'm seeing 2, I'm seeing 2, I'm seeing 5. That's pretty amazing. Got 4 up there. I got 3 and 4. It's like 7. Yeah? Okay. What I'm saying is, we often have these goals that we say, these are my priorities, right? In recovery and in life. But yet, if you actually are honest with yourself about what you do, if I am honest with myself about what I do, I often find I'm not living my priorities, right? It's a good reality check. My sponsor told me, he said, Jesse, how much do you pray in it? Because I was having a real issue with relapsing. I said, well, if he asked me how much I believe in prayer, of course I would tell him I believe in prayer. But he didn't ask me, do I believe in prayer? He said, Jesse, how many minutes a day do you pray? How about you? Show me on a hand of fingers. Who prays 5 minutes a day? Who prays 10 minutes a day? Who prays 15 minutes a day? 30 minutes a day? I see one hand went down. 2 hands. My sponsor is Jewish, okay? He said, you're a wuss, man. He said, you're a wuss. He said, the magic comes at 45 minutes. He said, start with 30, right? He said, start with 30. When you get to 30 minutes, you're gonna see a change in your life that is unexplainable. I don't know why, I don't know how, but it just works. Because I was like, I pray when I'm in the shower. He said, Jesse, if you had a relationship with a person and you only talked to them while you were taking a shower, or for that length of time, how good would your relationship be? I'm like, yeah, it would probably kind of suck, So this idea that our priorities of recovery and our priorities of our walk with God, really asking ourselves, and for me, I need brothers in my life that I can talk with this stuff on a daily basis, that it's not just I wasn't good enough today, but I share my journey, and they encourage me with theirs, and I encourage them with theirs. And together we get better. And they remind me when I'm struggling. They say, hey, I love you. It sounds like you're having a difficult time. How's that going with those 30 minutes a day of your prayer time? And we encourage each other to get back to our priorities in life. So, after making the decision to turn your life and will over to God, what areas of your life are you still not putting God first in? And I loved the sub-question of that, which was, what things are still in my hidden closet that I have not taken out? And at first, I didn't see the connection between those things. And later I was thinking this is kind of like step 3 in a lot of 12-step literature, which is I surrender my life and will over to God. And that means that I turn over my life, my will, and my secrets, right? Like there are things about myself that I've really struggled to be fully honest and fully transparent about. But when I turn that over to God, God does the healing, does something amazing. What in your past is interfering with your doing God's will? Like I shared, for me, it was shame. It was shame over stuff that I had done. And I think each of us, we have different stories, but we oftentimes, particularly when we start recovery, we have something that has been holding us back. A lot of times I looked at addiction as I looked at the behavior I was doing in addiction, and I forgot that there's a reason behind it. There's something deeper underneath that. What is that thing? What is that pain or that trauma or that shame that I haven't given over to God, that I have an opportunity to in a step 4? And I love the thing that when you get into step 4 and you have a sponsor, you have somebody you trust, you find you're not alone. I mean, I think probably all of us who've done this before could share your worst secrets, and the other person in some way, shape, or form has an experience that they can understand you. I know some of my darkest secrets were like that, and I told my sponsor, I was like, yeah, Jesse, I did that and I did worse. And I started understanding I'm not alone in this. Next one, your pleasures. I love this verse. It says, he who loves pleasure will become poor. Right? So I was looking at my habits were my way of covering up pain. I used to always just think I'm just a bad guy, this sin that I have in my life, my addiction thing. But there's something about it that was covering up pain. So the next verse says, you will teach me how to live a holy life. Being with you will fill me with joy. At your right hand, I will find pleasure forevermore. Let's change that to an if-then, yeah? So, if I let Jesus do what? I don't know if the verse is up there. It's not up there. I've been talking too fast. If I let Jesus teach me to do what? Do you remember the verse? Live a holy life. And if I be with him, right? Be with him, spend time with him, connecting with him, he will fill me with joy. At his right hand, I will find peace. They use the word pleasure forevermore. People have said we usually use addiction to do 2 things. We're either trying to numb pain or increase pleasure, right? To me, this sounded like an if-then format. If I let Jesus teach me to walk in his way, teach me the way I'm supposed to go in my life, He'll teach me how to live a life that is, we use this word holy. I love both of those words. Holy as in pure, but whole as in together, like a whole piece, right? He's going to teach me to live a whole life. Not just a life that's stuck in this one area. I can actually be full. I can let you guys know all of me. I can experience joy in so many parts of my life. But it comes from letting him teach me and spending time with him. And he gives a promise. He says, at my right hand, right? If you're right-handed, it means it's handy. It's nearby. I will find pleasures forevermore. Do you guys remember the verse when Jesus was at the well in John 4? And the woman said to Jesus, she said, can you give me some water? And he said, the water I can give you. He said, if you get water from this well, you'll do what? Do you remember that verse? You'll always be thirsty again. Haven't you found that true with the things that we look for in life, whether that's any of the vices or any of the pleasures in this life you want? It's just like drinking salt water. Amen. You never get full, right? It's never enough. What do they say in AA? 1 is too many and 1,000 isn't enough, right? Isn't it like that? But here Jesus is telling me, if I follow his steps, let him teach me, let him show me how to live a holy life, and I spend time with him, he's going to help me find pleasure forever. I don't know about you, but to me that sounds pretty attractive. I like that idea. Last two ones. What have been your priorities in your job? Friendship, personal goals? Were you self-centered? Were you self-serving? One of the things I had to, when I looked at this question, I was like, well, okay, why am I chasing things in my job? Why am I ambitious? Why am I looking at other things to be my source of comfort, my source of pleasure, or my goal in life? And I had to be honest that one of the reasons because I had a fear that God wasn't going to be good. Because I had experienced trauma. I had experienced things that I thought shouldn't happen in my life. And I had to turn that over to God. And I think that's one of the things in the journey of recovery is that we have to get honest with God. I don't know if you were like me, but I used to feel that I had to wrap my hurts, my deepest, darkest secrets in a pretty bow and hide them away, and I didn't bring them to God. I certainly didn't tell other people about them. And yet, I'm finding that God wants me to share those with him. Even if I'm not ready to share them with somebody else yet, at least he wants me to tell him about them. And then as you go through the steps, we find we can share them with other people. And there's a fear sometimes that when you're in step 4, if you've ever heard a story of somebody writes something down in the inventory and the next day they go home and they try to make amends for it right away. They try to confess it the same day and they feel so much better. And we're encouraged not to do that. There's a reason why the next step is not amends. The next step is you share it with your sponsor. It's a process. So we want to write it down for ourselves, get it out there, and then work through it with your sponsor the next step. We're getting towards the end of the time. Your attitude. Gratitude. How many of you guys made a gratitude list in the last 24 hours? I used to come home every day and complain about my day to my wife. It was the first thing I did when I walked in the door. I was so happy to have somebody to tell all my difficult things. Very quickly I noticed she stopped waiting around the door and started hiding around the house because she didn't want to hear all my difficulties. And so my sponsor suggested, as I was walking home, to mentally make a list of 10 things I was grateful for. And by the time I came to the door, I just found gratitude was overflowing and things started changing in my communication. Gratitude. Have I been ungrateful? Have I forgotten God's goodness towards me? Work on that gratitude list. We're running out of time. I'm probably out of time. Just things to look for here. How's my anger doing? Am I losing my temper? Am I being harsh with my words? Am I being unloving with my words? What in my past is still causing me fear or anxiety? Are there things that I'm worried other people are going to know about me, that are driving me in my addiction that gets out when I confess it, when I share it in my moral inventory? Last one is integrity. I can't tell you how healing it's been for me to finally have everything out, to not have this fear of anymore, well, somebody's going to find. I don't know if you've ever been like that in your life. There are areas of my life I'm scared people are going to find out. You know, it happened to me for my finances because they were involved with my acting out. It happened to me with my text messages because it could show my acting out. My internet browsing history. There were so many things that I was worried. And now as I go through recovery, I don't have that fear anymore. I'm not worried people are going to find out this, that, or the other about me because I'm starting to live a life with more integrity. I'm not going to say full integrity. I'm working on it.
Amen.
I better end there, Jeff, yeah? All right, we'll end there for the day. There's going to be part 2 next week, guys. Thanks for joining.